They almost never look threatening. In fact, at first, most stalkers seem friendly, quiet coworkers, talkative customers, polite neighbors. That's what makes them dangerous. These 3 true stories show exactly how subtle it starts. A few familiar questions, a glance that lingers, a coincidence that doesn't feel quite right. And almost every person involved thought it was nothing, until they realized they'd waited too long to act. Every story you're about to hear carries the same truth by the time they fully understood what was happening. The stalker already knew too much, had gotten too close, and wasn't planning on leaving. I started working at my local pizza place when I was 17. It was a basic weekend job, nothing exciting, just long hours, low tips, and endless garlic grease under my fingernails. The deliveries were usually forgettable, same neighborhoods, same tired customers. But one Friday night, I got sent to a house way out near the edge of town, tucked behind a row of abandoned trailered lots. The guy who answered was polite, a little quiet, maybe mid-30s. He tipped well, smiled slightly, and thanked me by name. I didn't think much of it until the order came from the same house the next night, and again the next night. Same house, same guy, same exact order. No bite taken, receipt still sealed on the box. He always tipped in cash too generously for cold pizza. I joked to a coworker that he probably had a crush, but it started to feel more calculated than curious. One time he asked how fast I could drive when delivering. Another, he complimented the scrunchie I wore in my hair, something you wouldn't notice unless you'd already been staring. The creepiest moment was when I opened the tip box and found a plastic bracelet, the kind we sell during fundraisers at school. I hadn't worn one in weeks. A few nights later, I stopped taking deliveries altogether, said I needed a break. But the break didn't last. Because the following weekend, when I came home from the store, that same man was waiting on my porch wearing the same uniform I wore at work. He smiled like we were in on some shared joke. "They said you weren't delivering anymore," he said, gesturing to a pizza box in his hands. So I figured I'd return the favor. I froze. My parents weren't home, my phone was inside, and it was just him and me, like he knew exactly when to show up. "I'm not hungry," I muttered, backing toward the door. "Is this a prank?" But he didn't answer. He leaned forward, set the box down carefully at my feet, and looked straight past me toward the window beside my door. "Your curtains are crooked," he whispered. "Police came." He was gone by then, of course. But when they reviewed exterior footage from a neighbor's camera, they counted at least 6 separate nights he'd been staring at my house from across the street. That plastic bracelet? I'd lost it weeks earlier just outside my window, where he'd probably picked it up. I've always been a creature of habit. Gym at 6 a.m., yoga on Fridays, jog on Sundays. Routine keeps me sane. There was a guy at my gym who started showing up around the same time I did. Tall, serious-looking, always stretching when I arrived. At first, I barely noticed him. But then I realized he was always there. Same machines, same days, same spot by the water fountain. He smiled occasionally, just enough to seem polite, not creepy. A few friends teased that maybe he had a crush, but I brushed it off. People have routines. We just happened to share one, right? Then one Sunday, I twisted my ankle while jogging the trail near the park. As I sat on a bench, wincing and trying not to cry, someone walked up behind me and said, "You okay?" It was him, the gym guy. I was stunned. He claimed it was a coincidence that he ran there sometimes, but I'd been jogging that route for years and had never seen him. He offered to help me back to my car, and I let him reluctantly. I told my roommate later, and she laughed, said the dude was just super observant, but something didn't sit right. A few days later at the gym, he left his phone on a bench while picking up a towel. Notifications lit up the screen, my name, blurry images of me stretching, jogging, even reaching into my mailbox. I didn't say anything. I walked out so calmly I thought my legs would give out from underneath me. I filed a report the same day. When police searched his apartment, they found something I still can't fully wrap my head around: a handwritten calendar pinned above his bed. Every day had a note. 6:05 a.m. arrives. Friday, 7:12 a.m. wears yellow jacket. Sunday, jogs. Mile 2 stop, soured bench. One date, circled in red at the very bottom, just said one word: soon. That was 3 days from then. I didn't sleep that weekend. I didn't jog again ever. Everything I thought was part of my harmless, structured life had already belonged to him. The last I heard, he was charged with stalking and invasion of privacy. But even after he was taken away, I kept seeing shadows that weren't there. I moved, switched gyms, changed my hair, but I still check over my shoulder every time I pass anyone, even if they're just stretching. When I moved into my new apartment, the man in Unit 2B introduced himself almost immediately. His name was Gary, maybe late 50s, widowed, kind in the way older neighbors usually are. He offered to show me how to reset the circuit breaker and told me to knock if I ever needed tools. At first, I appreciated it. He'd wheel my trash bins to the curb, bring in my packages, and even salt the steps after a snowstorm. Too thoughtful to be suspicious. Too consistent to just chalk up to friendliness. Then one day, he returned a pair of my socks. He handed them to me folded, smiling. "Found these near the laundry room," he said. I thanked him instinctively, but froze halfway through the sentence. I don't use a communal laundry room. I have a machine inside my unit. I laughed it off awkwardly, but something shifted after that. I started noticing small details that hadn't been there before. My doormat looked swept when I hadn't touched it in days. My blinds always angled a certain way were off-center, as if someone had peeked through them. Packages I never received were later found retaped and leaning against my door. I kept telling myself maybe it was helpful behavior gone overboard. Until one night around 3 a.m., I heard someone whispering outside. It was so soft I nearly thought I imagined it. But when I cranked the volume on my phone's voice memo app, I caught it. My name. Just my name. Whispered slowly. On repeat. The next morning, I bought a Ring doorbell camera and installed it before work. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. Motion detected. I watched the footage with my heart thundering. Gary stood inches from my door barefoot, in pajamas muttering my name softly like it was part of a prayer. He just stood there. 5 minutes. 6. Then turned. Walked away like it was nothing. I showed the footage to the landlord and police. They issued a no-contact order, but by then it didn't matter. I'd already packed. That wasn't just a neighbor. He was rehearsing something. I moved 2 towns over. New building, new locks, no neighbors. The only things I kept from that apartment were the Ring camera. And the socks. I never wore them again, but I keep them in a drawer just in case I need to remind myself that kindness can be a mask. Stalkers don't always wear the mask of monsters. Sometimes they're disguised as neighbors, strangers, even friends. All it takes is one person watching long enough, learning your patterns, your routines, your vulnerabilities until they know more about your life than you do. And when that happens, it's no longer just creepy. It's dangerous. Not every stalker gets caught. And not every victim gets a warning before it's too late. If you've ever felt that gut instinct telling you something's wrong, listen to it. You're not paranoid. And if you've experienced something like this, you're not alone anymore.